Hey guys, it's Good Friday, and I wanted to acknowledge my friends and family in that tradition that are walking through Good Friday today. And I'm noting that I don't have to be any certain religion to know what it's like to experience a Good Friday season in this human existence. I want to talk about coffee and how it relates to my Good Friday experience so far. I was out of coffee this morning, which is rare because it's so precious to me. I make sure that we have it all the time. But this morning when Lewis and I were up making our brew, he said, "You're not going to believe this, but we're out." And I was like, okay, well, I think that's my sign to go to my favorite coffee shop and get a pistachio latte, which I haven't had in a really long time. And he said, "Yeah, that sounds good to me. Get me a chai tea latte too." So that's what I did. And when I pulled up to the coffee shop, I'm noting that I have a lot of experiences at this coffee shop, which is interesting to me. But I pulled up to the window and there was this lovely young man, and we had our exchange. He's taking my order and there's a little bit of banter, and he just stopped and looked at me and he said, "Are you having a Good Friday?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I am." And I realized there's maybe an issue of semantics here, like Happy Friday versus, are you walking through the shadow of death right now? And I said, how is your Good Friday? And he said, it's interesting, but when I woke up this morning, I just feel like the streets smell like vinegar. And I spend a lot of time in sacred texts across a myriad of religions and traditions. It is like a playground for me. I really enjoy it. And when he said the word vinegar, I feel like I had a flashback. I spent a lot of my 20s, was trained on how to exegete and how to look for the meanings of words and really get into the weeds. And on one hand, that was really fun. On the other hand, for me personally, I felt there was sort of this inclination that I was looking for a right answer and how, for me, that had the propensity to choose trying to be right, quote unquote, versus loving people and being open to receiving people exactly where they are. And that's a side note. So, but in that time, in that season of exegeting and spending that time researching, I remember a conversation in the cohort about vinegar. And please don't stone me, it's been a while, but I think the story goes that the story of the crucifixion is that he was offered vinegar, which was really like a mixture of like an herb that was a painkiller and maybe like some watered down wine. It was this whole concoction, and it was an insult as far as I can remember from the story, and that he refused it at first. And what that said to me was that there's a time for the suffering, right? There's a time to feel all the stuff. There's a time to feel all the betrayal, all of the injustices, all of the circumstances we feel like we were handed, the things that are happening to us, right? But that eventually he took it. He took the painkiller to like say what he needed to say. And then he entered the tomb. He entered the cave, right? This season of going within and doing the excavating and experiencing the death of things, right? It might be the death of a marriage. It might be the death of a plan. It might be the literal death of a loved one. It might be those things in our human experience. But also, there is a time of resurrection. There's a time to walk out of that, embracing my light body in conjunction with this physical experience. And it was so wild to instantly have that come back to me when that young man said the word vinegar. That if I go into the cave of exploration, if I go within, I had a beautiful friend on Facebook remind me of The Cave through Joseph Campbell, which I love his work. Highly recommend it if you haven't tapped into some of his stuff. But the cave to me is the self. It's going in and excavating and healing and working on that inner stuff that keeps us from knowing our own power. And I know this is going to trigger some people. But what if the themes, the stories of incarnation, life, death, and resurrection are not just about this one person, this one human of Jesus that we call Jesus, right? I hear that as the point is the story is also about me. It's also about you. It is also about hearing the call when it's time to rise up and walk out and to allow our truest nature to be resurrected within us, in this body, in this time, not waiting for the other side or for something to happen. It is choosing to walk out resurrected because we've gone within and we've sat in the cave and we've done the work.